Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Matt Baer, the founder of Q4Launch, and I am excited that you all are along for the ride with us today. Had a really strong response for today's webinar. About 300 people actually registered for today's webinar, so excited about that. Tells us there's a lot of people that are excited about this topic as well, and I think it's very fitting with the changes we see in the industry happening, which we're going to dive into. So not to jump straight into it, but excited to be able to offer this webinar and some insights into this topic today on how to reduce your dependency on third-party booking sites. A little bit of background information on us, and then I will share a little bit of our housekeeping for today as well. So a little bit of background on myself. I have been in internet marketing now for about 15 years, since Al Gore really first claimed to have invented the internet. You know, much of my time started, I had an e-commerce company for the first 7 years of my time doing internet marketing, developed products, realized nobody was buying them, and then became the student of marketing to sell the products that we had developed. And that really ignited a passion for me 15 years ago on internet marketing and for what that would become. That quickly developed into a lot of content marketing. We did a lot of content marketing to sell our products. We didn't talk about it at that time, but that's what we call it now. At that time, it was just writing how-to articles to solve people's problems, and then we, of course, had all the products lined up that you need to execute that how-to article. Fast forward 15 years, we've got cool terms like content marketing and inbound marketing and social media marketing we didn't have back when I was getting started. But we were doing a lot of those things, we just didn't have names for it. So that's a little bit about my background. Q4Launch started 8 years ago, or I founded it 8 years ago. We are a destination travel marketing company. So if this is your first time with us, I know we have a lot of first-time attendees signed up today. Glad that you are here. We specifically specialize in and only work with customers on the lodging side of the travel industry. And we work with customers from Hong Kong to Napa Valley and just about everywhere in between. We've got a U.S. map in our office and an international map with all of our customers plotted out on it, and have a lot of data from all these different destinations and locations. And we see a lot happening in the industry. So a lot of that's kind of, that experience and that data is behind all the webinars we do. And I know many of you share comments with us afterwards about how helpful that is today. Today we're not going to dive deep into data, but much of what we're talking about comes from the changes we're seeing and some of the data we're seeing with our customers. So you're going to learn a lot about those things on our time together today. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about our company, and we'll do a little bit of housekeeping here, and then we'll just dive straight in. If this is your first time with me, you also probably picked up the fact that while we are located in Charleston, I'm not your traditional Southern boy, and that we talk really fast, move really fast through our content, because we have a lot of great content we want to get across to you today. We want to do an hour-long webinar that you get about an hour and a half of content into, as opposed to most webinars you've been to. They take 10 minutes of content and stretch it into an hour. We're going to take about an hour and a half and pack it into an hour. So it's a fast pace, but you're going to learn a lot. So buckle up, take notes, and then we will also be sending a recording out after. If you need to listen to it again, to process it, digest it, create an action plan based on what you're learning today, which will give you some next steps to help you do that, then the recording will be very helpful for you as well. If you're listening to the recording, I'm glad that you're taking the time to do that as well. I know a lot of people have registered hoping to get that recording as they had several conflicts and so forth today at this actual time slot. And then at the end of our time together, we'll always have a lot of questions and answers. We want to answer as many of those as possible. We'll be using the chat panel for Q&A. So if you have questions as we go throughout our time together, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat panel, and we will address those questions at the end of our time, about the last 10 minutes we have together. We'll dive into that chat panel and answer those questions. So other than that, I will probably ignore the chat panel. So it's not a great place to communicate with me throughout the webinar, but we will get to that at the end to make sure we get all those questions answered. So that's it. Hopefully that helps you. A little bit about our topic today, something that's really important to us as a company, something that's really important to our customers is their relationship with third-party booking sites. And we get a lot of questions submitted via our website about this. We get a lot of questions from our customers about this. And how do you manage that relationship well? We're not saying how to eliminate your dependency on third-party booking sites. nor are we suggesting you eliminate them. We have close relationships with a lot of the sites we're going to talk about today. And we advocate in certain cases for your involvement with those third parties. So notice that. It's not how to eliminate. It's how to reduce your dependency, because in your business you have to think about what role should they play in your business, and then decide if you're okay with that role or if that role is too large. And that's a little bit different for everybody. We can't generalize that. I know we threw some percentages out in one of our invitations. But a general statement, I think we can all set a goal to say, you know, it's going to be in your best interest to reduce your dependency on third-party booking sites in 2016, and we're going to share some of the reasons why we believe that today, and hopefully help you create an action plan to do that. So with that, let's dive into our content. The only, as we look through this, the only constant is change. We hosted a webinar series actually earlier this year and at the very end of last year on the topic Expedia buys HomeAway. We wrote a blog about it to share our thoughts with the industry. That blog kind of went viral, had a ton of traffic, so we followed that up with a webinar, had over 500 people register and come to those webinars. So obviously a very hot topic in the travel industry, a major acquisition, and that's not specifically what we're talking about today, but that is one of the things that's leading us to this topic and why I think so many people are talking about this right now, the topic of reducing dependency on third-party distribution, because the only constant is change. The only thing you can rely on is that the third-party distribution is changing. There is an aggregation happening at the top, or a consolidation happening at the top, meaning the biggest players are buying each other up and getting bigger, which is a little bit scary. You know, most everyone we work with are the small independent side of that, so it's a little scary to kind of see how all that shakes out, and you never know exactly what the play is. We talked a lot more about what our beliefs are for Expedia's play with that acquisition, the why behind some of that on that webinar, which we'd be happy to get you a copy of, or you can find that on our YouTube channel. But the one thing we know is this consolidation or this acquisition is happening rampantly at the top of the industry. It's also happening at the lower, at the more independent level of the industry. We see lots of hotel groups buying individual boutique hotels, inns, vacation rental companies. The travel segment is hot right now, and there are a lot of people trying to get their hands on that space, be it investors or larger companies trying to consolidate and create bigger companies. Lots of that's happening right now. Booking.com bought Boutique. You know, that was a big change a little over a year ago now. That's brought some change a lot of people aren't happy with. A lot of people don't want to be, you know, looped into all that, but it happened, and now it's Booking Suite, and it's that whole conglomeration. Expedia bought HomeAway to become the largest online travel agent in the world as far as by number of actual properties listed on the platform. So a major change happening there. HomeAway has made major changes in the way they're ranking properties via their best match algorithm, and lots of other changes to that based on lots of factors we're not going to get into. We're seeing decreases in Tripadvisor traffic almost across the board, which we don't think is a result of the fact that Tripadvisor's traffic is down. We think that's a result of the fact that Tripadvisor has been changing over the last several years the way they've designed their website to drive more traffic to the OTAs and drive less traffic to the individual property. That change is having an impact on you, and you've got to keep an eye on those things. Everyone is pushing everything to become 100% bookable online. We talked about that probably a year ago or more. We've talked about it several times as HomeAway was making a lot of changes to push everything to be 100% bookable online. HomeAway, in a statement during the finalization of the acquisition by Expedia, Brian Sharples came out and made a statement saying, we will be 100% bookable online. Not we want you to be, not we'll give you preference if you are, we will be 100% bookable online. That's not an exact quote, but you can find it, a statement made in December, and go back and trace that back. And that's got a lot of people's feathers raised. A lot of our customers are not excited about that specific piece. Airbnb has pushed the instant book. They're not pushing it as hard, but they're pushing instant book. There's so many things happening that are pushing that instant booking scenario that a lot of people aren't excited about. And if you're not excited about that, but that's a mandate coming down from from above, you have to decide, are you going to comply with that, or are you going to make some changes in the way you're doing things? So something to think about there as well. And what this all stems out of is that we believe that the directories are trying to control that customer relationship. That's the last bullet point here. I think it might be off the screen a bit for you. But the directories are trying to control that customer relationship. Let me move that up the screen there. And the control of the customer relationship comes with control of the industry. Because if you really can control the customer relationship, you have the opportunity to control their entire loyalty, their booking, everything. Whoever controls the relationship controls the whole thing. And all of this stems out of a desire to control that customer relationship. And that may not seem like a big deal. It maybe seems like a big deal to you, but it is a big deal. I guarantee you it's a big deal. Because when the moment you lose control of the customer relationship, you lose a lot of things. And we're going to talk about that. But you start seeing some of these changes when you don't get contact information for your customer. I mean, we've heard horror stories about customers showing up or travelers showing up, and because they're, the way information is handled back and forth, you didn't even know they were showing up. And that's a breakdown in a system or a process, but the bigger picture issue here is you're not given the people's contact information a lot of times before they arrive. And more of the major conglomerate or third-party directories, OTAs, are moving away from giving you that customer contact information. So you can't figure out who's coming. You can't screen them. You just have to accept that booking blindly and hope for the best. That means if you are a small inn or a hotel, you don't get to talk to your guests before they show up. I know that's a problem for some of you. For some of you, that you've been doing business that way forever. But if you live on site, that's a bit scary for some people, that whole concept. That means if you're a vacation rental manager, that you may not get to screen out bachelor parties. They might show up and they might trash your house, and you don't know they're going to be a bachelor party until they check in, or maybe they don't even check in. Maybe you're past that. You don't have the front desk situation. You have them go straight to properties and use electronic check-in and all that. Great, that's awesome. Great use of technology. But you don't have the ability to control that customer relationship like you used to. Now, they say, they take baby steps. Nobody's going to jump straight into something. And they're going to push an agenda, but they're going to push it a step at a time to get you comfortable, one step at a time. Before you know it, you wake up and, well, how did we get here? I used to have all these policies that now I just don't have anymore. But it's just not something you really have the opportunity to control. So you've got to be thinking about that as well as part of your overall marketing strategy. What does that look like? How are you going to work that in? And what role do third-party directories need to have, knowing where they're trying to take things? So it's just something to think about as you're working through that as well and trying to understand the role that third-party directories have. So we talked about, they're forcing online bookings, but let's dive into that a little bit deeper. One of the things we'd like to help you do is really put yourselves in the shoes of the person who's forcing the issue. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of the directories and try to understand why are they going to be going about making these changes and forcing these changes. One is that it forces availability calendars to be kept up to date, which is a big deal. In certain aspects of the industry, a lot of people, specifically on the HomeAway side, have been, they'll list one condo or something, or one property, and then they'll have actually 4 or 5 of that property, but they'll just list one and they'll keep the calendar open and they'll push people into the four properties when they get the chance. And that's not something that HomeAway is real excited about. But if you force online bookings, you're removing the ability for people to be able to use that, meaning that you can't cut your distribution strategy like you used to be able to. It eliminates that multiple properties as one listing and being able to push those bookings into different channels. It makes it more difficult to list on multiple directories as well. They all want you to be able to import, export calendars, and some of them have that functionality, but some of them don't push to other ones, and it's just not a real seamless thing. Now, if you have a great property management system, you can integrate some of that to make that a little bit easier, but there's really not that seamless integration, which then forces you to spend a lot of money on a lot of other things to solve those problems. And we talked about the fact that giving the directories complete control of the customer's buying process as well. And that's the most important aspect of this thing. That's the biggest piece that's got us a little bit, our hair raised a little bit as a marketing group who is really put in place by our customers to help them drive more direct bookings, help gain control of the customer's buying process, you've got to make sure you're in that role where you're keeping control of the customer relationship and you're keeping control of the buying process. And then ultimately, like everything else that happens at a publicly traded company, it's all about increasing control and about increasing revenue. All of the changes that are happening stem down from a vision to drive more revenue and more control of the customer relationship, which again, control of the customer relationship ties back to more revenue and being able to control what they're booking, when they're booking it, who they're booking it with, what the price is going to be, how much percentage of that the OTA gets. And you bet when they get more and more control, they're going to then they have the ability to drive price as well. If they control the demand portion of the supply and demand equation, they have the ability to control how much you pay them, because if you build a marketing strategy and you're heavily reliant on them, you can't break away from them. At some point where you become too reliant, you lose the ability to break away because your business essentially ceases to function if you break away. So that's part of what we're talking about today, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that statement as we move throughout our time together today. So if directories own your customers, and this is we've got this as its own slide because I want this to be a major takeaway for you today. But if directories own your customers, your brand ceases to be relevant and you become a commodity. Let me say that again. If directories own your customers, your brand ceases to be relevant and you become a commodity. That's something we all want to stay away from. That's a huge red flag, because at the moment you become irrelevant or you become a commodity, you lose the ability to drive value. That's the whole thing, right? A commodity is something that's the same across the board. You can buy it from vendor A or you can buy it from vendor B. It's the exact same thing. There's no value add to that. You lose the ability to determine the price based on the value you're adding to the overall mix. If you're a vacation rental manager, that means you lose value for your owners. The property owners that you represent, you lose value to them because you're a commodity. That means to your customers, you lose value. Your brand is irrelevant. They're not booking with you. They're booking with a third-party distribution. They're booking with Booking.com. They're booking with an OTA. They're booking with HomeAway. So that is the brand that they develop loyalty to. That's the brand they develop the connection to. You lose relevance in that customer's mind, which means you lose the repeat business that you're used to having. You lose a lot of those things. You lose your competitive position against your neighbor. Warren Buffett talks about building kind of a competitive moat around your business so that your competitors can't attack you because you have this moat around your castle. And that's a great concept. It's a great visual that I learned at a young age and has always stuck with me because I'm a very visual guy. So that visual has always stuck with me. You got to have that moat built around yourself. But if you lose control of the directory, you lose that moat around your business. Your business also loses value. If you think about someday, you probably plan to sell your business and take an exit and retire to the Caribbean like everybody, right? That's the dream, either the Caribbean or Florida. I don't know where you're planning on retiring, but that's the dream. And by losing control of your brand and being too heavily reliant on third-party distribution, you cripple the value of your business. So as you're thinking long-term, as you're thinking about setting up a successful exit, you need to be thinking about that piece of it as well. Because if all you have is an engine that gets bookings from HomeAway or anybody else, anybody can start a business and go put a listing on HomeAway. You can do that in about 15 minutes with $349. Or anybody can start a hotel and they can be up and running on Booking.com in 24 hours. Anybody can do that. So you lose the value of your brand, you lose the value of your business by being overly reliant on that, which means when they make changes to their algorithms, when they increase the price, when they increase the commission they're demanding, you're a hostage to that. You are essentially their puppet. And they have shown a lot of different, they've shown their cards a little bit that that's how they view things. They consider the fact that they've gotten so big, and I'm not naming any one third-party directory when I'm saying that, but collectively as a group, they are so big they believe they control the booking part of our industry. And for being such a big industry, it's something we can't lose control of as independents. We have to maintain our direct booking channels and be having strategies in place to grow our direct booking channels, because the downside is so big. The downside is losing the value of your business. The downside is losing control of your customer relationship. The downside is losing the ability to control your own price and your own margin based on how much you're paying the third-party distribution. So much is wrapped up into this conversation that we're having today. It's absolutely critical. Which leads us to the question of how do you reduce your dependency on third-party booking sites? And that's what we're here to ultimately talk about. We wanted to kind of set the stage for our first few minutes together on some of the changes we're seeing in the industry, some of the threat that those changes are to your business, right? As your business owners, we've got to be keeping an eye on our competitive landscape and the threats that we're exposed to. But then how do we develop a plan to reduce our dependency on the third-party booking sites? And the answer to that question is it starts with regaining control of your customer and your brand. As we travel and speak, I speak probably at this point, 2016 is filling up quickly, but I speak probably about 20 conferences a year. I lead, last year I led about 20 webinars. I think I'm slated to lead somewhere between 40 and 50 webinars this year. So my world is quickly becoming a world of speaking and traveling, which is exciting, and I love doing it. But as I travel and I meet with people and I speak and I share the vision for building your own marketing and growing your own demand channel, the number one thing I see people doing wrong is relinquishing too much control of their own marketing to third-party distribution. They are letting go of control. They're relinquishing control of the customer, and they're not investing into establishing their own brand. Every time you make an investment by paying a commission to a third-party distribution site or paying a listing fee to a third-party distribution site, you are investing in the growth of their business. You're investing in the growth of HomeAway's brand. You're investing in the growth of Booking.com's marketing engine. They are going to take part of what you pay them, and they are going to invest it in marketing Booking.com or HomeAway.com or Orbitz.com or Expedia.com. They're investing that money to market themselves, build their brand. And they've built a phenomenal brand, and they're getting you to pay for their own marketing. And, of course, they're returning some value, right? They're returning that booking to you at a commission of 15, 20, 30%. I know it varies quite a bit for everybody here. But that's a big deal because you're making that investment to help them grow their business. And they thank you for that every time. But what you've done is you have no control over that customer at that point. And they don't really care who they book with. That's the other thing you got to be thinking about. You get yourself on that list of the other 100 properties in your destination or 1,000 properties in your destination. You're on the list, but do you think they care who they book with? They get a 15% commission regardless of who they book with. All they care is that they make a booking. So they've designed their entire system to keep people on their system and make sure they make a booking with their system. They don't care if it goes to you or your competitor. They just want the customer to make a booking with them. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure that that happens, whereas you care if they're going to book with you or your competitor. But you have no control over that unless you're actually building a system to drive traffic and bookings to your own website, regaining control of your customer, regaining control of your brand, which means to do that, you have to be willing to make an investment in the growth of your business. And that's one of the big lessons we really try to another takeaway point that we want you to have, and that's that marketing is an investment in the growth of your business. Your CPA is going to tell you as tax time is rolling right around, and I'm in the throes of that myself, but your CPA is going to tell you that marketing is an expense, and you need to control that expense. And they're right. Don't get me wrong. You got to control that number. But you've got to flip your thinking a little bit from that marketing is an expense on my P&L or my profit and loss statement to the fact that marketing is an investment. And you should be investing dollars expecting to get a return on that investment measured by increased bookings to your business. And as you're thinking about marketing, you need to be thinking about that specific statistic. Do you want to invest in the growth of your own business in 2016 by investing in your own marketing, or do you want to invest in the growth of HomeAway, Expedia, Travelocity, Booking.com, anybody else? Invest in the growth of their business, hoping that that trickles down to you and you get some small percentage of that pie. So be thinking about that as you're setting, hopefully you've already set budgets for the year, but as you're setting those things in place, be thinking about that and the role that that's going to play in your business this year. As we go down that road and we work towards regaining control of our customer relationship and our brand, we have to create marketing and a customer experience that's memorable. We have to engage our visitors on a lot of different channels. We have to have a marketing strategy that's integrated together so that no matter where they're receiving our message, be it on social media or email or on the web or in a pay-per-click ad or in a Google search, that our message is memorable and it's consistent across that entire board. Your email marketing strategy has to be integrated with your blogging strategy. It has to be integrated with the web experience that they're having. It has to be integrated with your search engine strategy. All of this needs to be working together as an orchestra effect to create a beautiful sound that nothing can create on its own. The violin's a beautiful instrument, but the sound it creates isn't the same as when it's a part of a larger orchestra. So you've got to be thinking about the different parts of your marketing strategy like that. We talk to a lot of people that have their marketing fragmented apart. They're doing this piece over here, and they're doing that over there, and they've got an intern working on this, and they're not doing this one at all. And it's fragmented, and they're not really sure what's happening, what's driving success, and why it's not really working, and they're worn out on trying to keep up with all that. You've got to bring that together, integrate that solution so that you understand what's happening, and then you have to make sure that it's memorable, right? You've got to engage your customer in the 5 stages of the travel process. We've heard us talk about that if you've been with us in webinars in the past, but the 5 stages of travel: dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. And that remembering stage ties back into being memorable, of course, is so important because while that was laid out originally as a linear process, we believe great marketing to someone who's in the remembering stage turns that from a linear process into a cyclical process and takes remembering and gets them to start that back over at the dreaming part. Dreaming being step 1, and it starts the whole process over again. Dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. And great marketing will help you create that cycle, a cycle of repeat guests. And that's a really powerful thing. But you've got to have a marketing strategy built around your ability to do that. So let's dive a little bit deeper on that subject. As we're doing that, we have to find other ways to reach our customers when they're booking accommodations. We have to get in their path when they're planning a trip to Walhalla, South Carolina, or Napa Valley, or Barcelona, Spain, or St. John, or wherever you happen to be. We have to create other strategies besides third-party distribution to get in their path and reach customers booking an accommodation. And as we do that, you've got to hone in and understand the customer behavior, the consumer behavior that's driving that decision-making, where they're spending time, where they're looking for messages, and thinking about those 5 stages of travel I just shared with you: dreaming, planning, booking, experiencing, remembering. As we work towards that, we want you to measure the number of people, the prospective customers you have, as traffic to your website. That's ultimately what you're working towards with marketing. That's the first step. Great marketing should be able to be measured by increase in traffic to your website, or let me say that another way, increase in eyeballs on your property. That's what's going to start that whole booking thing, right? You've got to get in their path. You've got to make sure that they find you. And setting goals for yourself to increase traffic from different marketing mediums in 2016 is going to be a really important part, because traffic is prospective customers. Now, there's not always a direct correlation between increased traffic and increased bookings, right? There's a lot of factors that go into where that traffic is coming from, the quality of the traffic, how well your site's converting. So much goes into that equation, so much more than let it be a direct correlation. But what we have seen time and time again, working with so many lodging customers, is that if we can increase quality traffic to the website, we will absolutely see an increase in bookings. It's not immediate. There is a little bit of a lag there. It takes 3 to 6 months to really build that momentum. The second 6 months is really where you start seeing that after having a consistent integrated strategy. And the second year is really where that ratchets up. We have many customers in their 3rd and 4th year with us, and it's exciting to see continued growth over previous years. I have a customer that just started their 4th year with us, and their 3rd year, every year has been better than the one before, and their 4th year they just crossed some major financial milestones, places they've never been as a business before in their 3rd year. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. But they've been committed to this strategy for so long that they've helped themselves get there, and they've stayed the course through little blips in it, and they haven't abandoned the core strategy that got them to the dance, that got them there. They stayed committed to that. And that's absolutely a key thing in the long-term success of their business, and they're really reaping that reward now. And January was a record January for them, and every month continues to be a record month, benchmarked against the one before, all while the individual market they're in is actually down. So they're continuing to grow while the market they're in is starting to slide. There's some crime rate stuff happening in this specific market, lots of other things going on, lots of new growth happening, new hotels opening up, but they're continuing to see growth while their market as a whole is seeing fragmentation and is seeing a reduction in the amount of market share for individual people. But their strategy has helped them grow that. So that started for them years ago by building a strategy to help drive traffic to their website, help drive prospective customers to their website. So with that, we have developed a one-page marketing plan to help you have a plan to attract more customers. We just taught this webinar a couple weeks ago, so if you missed it, I'm sorry that you missed it. I'm going to touch on some of the high-level points of how to create this strategy for yourself, and we'd be happy to get you connected with more information on the full plan, but we're going to share the Cliff Note versions of it with you here today. So understand the situation, understand where you need to go, and decide if reducing third-party distribution dependency is on your to-do list, and then help you create an action plan to be able to attract more customers in 2016 than you've ever attracted before, while knowing it is going to take some time to generate that momentum, generate that traffic, generate the bookings to see that ROI, return on your investment. And as we do that, I'm actually going to kind of take you through the case study of one of our customers, Brandy, who is the marketing director of Seaside Vacations. When Brandy started coming in, I'm using her case study. They've been a customer of ours. They're in their 4th year with us, not the same company I was just sharing that other example about. But when they came to us, I'm using her example because when I sat down with Brandy, I said, Brandy, what's the number one issue you have? Like, what's keeping you up at night? What has started this conversation for you? She told me, Matt, we're 95% reliant on third-party distribution, and that absolutely keeps me up at night. We have to regain control of that customer relationship, and this was 4 years ago. This was before all the changes we're seeing today. So that was urgent back then. It's even more so urgent today. And I'm going to share the case study on some real data with you guys on how we've helped Brandy make that transition and paint the picture for how you can do this in your own business and help you see some light on how to go about starting this process in your own business. So let's dive in here. If you've been with us before, you've heard us talk about email marketing, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. We're going to beat this drum until the drum won't play anymore. But email marketing is the highest ROI of any marketing medium out there that you'll see. You can Google that. You'll see case study, or excuse me, you'll see research report after research report backing up that fact that it will have the highest ROI of any marketing medium out there. Just got a call yesterday because I talk about email so much. Come speak on an email marketing panel at a hospitality conference that's coming up soon. So excited to do that and super pumped about this subject. But your guests want to hear from you. Think back to that dreaming, planning experience you're remembering I talked about just a few minutes ago. Email marketing is a great tool to communicate with guests that have stayed with you before and get them to start remembering that great experience they had, that family trip they took and stayed with you. Maybe it was that getaway they had, that couple's trip. They got away with a couple friends. They got away with their significant other. They got away with their kids. Whatever it is, whatever you're really marketing to, remind them of that experience. They want that emotional connection. They want to go back to that place and think about that. And like I said earlier, it's a short step from remembering that to starting the whole process over again and going back to dreaming. It's a short step from remembering the vacation I took to dreaming about the next vacation that I'm going to take. That's a really powerful thing, and email marketing is the #1 way you can do that. So as you're building your strategy to reduce your dependency on third-party distribution, this is absolutely moment #1, item #1 you need to tackle and have a strategy to do this year. Send 2 email campaigns per month at a minimum. I was talking to another peer in the hotel marketing world today, and she said she used to work for a hotel that sent daily email campaigns, and now she works for one that they send it about monthly. And we were talking about that, and we were talking about frequency, and she said, I never really connected with the whole daily thing. And I was like, honestly, statistics will show you that that is the right move. But so many people are so concerned about about unsubscribes and all these things, and we beat this drum as part of our email marketing thing. Until you see a spike in unsubscribes, you have a green light to send email. There is a reason that all the major e-commerce sites have huge email marketing departments. Amazon, Overstock.com, everybody sends a ton of email. There's a reason for that. I'm not saying your brand should be sending daily email campaigns, but I'm saying that anything about up to that, you probably have a green light, you'd be okay. It's really about sending quality content out to your list and giving them reasons to come visit you, giving them reasons to come back and see you, helping them remember that trip and getting them to dream about another one. That's the name of the game here with email marketing. And don't get so caught up in frequency and think you're going to create this list fatigue or so many other buzzwords we hear thrown around there. It's absolutely not true. And we can give you a ton of data to back that up. And as you're doing that, as you're working on driving more traffic to your website, right, that's where it starts. That's what we just said a minute ago. Expect to see about 8% of your database clicking through. Of course, that varies a little bit based on how you got your database and some of those things, but that's the number that we see. And we get that by the fact that each campaign is going to have about a 4% click-through rate, and we're going to send 2 per month to your database, or recommend sending that. So as you're doing that for yourself, you're going to see 2 times 4% is going to give you 8%. So if you have 10,000 emails, 8% of that's going to be 800 visits a month. If you get a 1% conversion ratio, meaning 1% of traffic actually converts into a booking, you're talking about 8 bookings a month coming from your email database if you had 10,000 people. So you can do that math for your own and see what that number would be for you, but that's kind of some ballpark there. As we worked with Brandy to help her do this, she was doing email marketing, and we hear that a lot. Oh, I'm already doing email. I think I'm okay. Just doing email isn't the same as doing it well, right? We all know that. You know, I watched the golf tournament this last weekend, and I watched those golf players, and they are phenomenally good. I can't even imagine being that good. I could have gone out. I could have played golf with them last weekend. I couldn't have actually because I can't get on the course. The Rangers would have kept me away. But had I been able to, I would not have shot a 65 like some of those players. I could have used the same clubs with the same course on the same day. My results would have been dramatically different. And that's what happened here with Brandy. She was sending some email, but it wasn't quite what it needed to be. It wasn't really built around that whole 5 stages of travel and understanding consumer behavior. So by getting more aggressive with her strategy, she was able to go from 80 visits a month with email marketing to about 950 visits a month. And of course, there's a lot of seasonality in that, right? We know that, so that's some averages. But lots of traffic coming from email marketing, and in the peak months, several thousands of people with an average of 950 a month. Phenomenal opportunity to drive more traffic to your website this year and book more accommodations. You can bet that HomeAway, Booking.com, all those sites are going to send a ton of email this year, and you've got to figure out the role it needs to play in your marketing strategy. Next thing we want to take a look at real quick here is social media. As we speak and we talk, and I ask people for some crowd engagement, the number one thing people tell me they're investing time into is social media from a marketing mix perspective. It's the number one thing they're investing their time into, but on the flip side of that, it has the lowest ROI of any of the marketing mediums we're going to talk about today. So it's the number one thing people are investing into, but it's got the lowest ROI of any other marketing medium, which is a huge problem, right? I mean, if you're investing the largest percentage of your marketing time into the area with the lowest ROI, you're making some bad decisions. Whether that's time or money, those are the 2 resources you have to invest in your marketing. You've got to be flipping that and thinking about that a little bit differently. So you have to have a presence in social media. But I would tell you this year, as you're putting your plan together and you're trying to reduce your dependency, scale back what you're doing on social media and increase what you're doing in some of these areas. Increase the time you're spending on email marketing, decrease the time you're spending on social media, and if all other things are equal, you will grow your business this year. I guarantee you that. You'll see more bookings coming through. But it's got to have a role. It just needs to be a smaller role than it most likely is today. Could be that you're ignoring it already. And if that's the case, then you can't really get a smaller role. Maybe you need to expand what you're doing. But you've got to understand the place that social media plays in your overall marketing strategy. As you do that, our encouragement would be to post 3 to 5 times per week. Make sure you have at least 1,000 fans following you, and a strategy to grow that at 5 to 10% per month. That growth number is really important because that is that's the audience you're building when you need to get a message out in social media. When you have last-minute availability, social media is a great way to fill it, but you've got to build an audience to get that message out to first. So you've got to be investing consistently in building an audience so that when you have a message you need to get out quickly, you've done the hard work of building the audience already. Now you have a group of people you can get that message out to quickly. It's a little bit on how to use social media there and the role it needs to play as you're working towards that. And as we worked on that with Brandy, she had 297 fans on social media. She had kind of gotten there organically, and that was great, but she needed a strategy to grow that. And when I took this screenshot, it was actually a few months ago, and I should have updated it for y'all, but took this screenshot, went ahead and plugged it in here. She had 11,000 fans. I think now she has over 13,000 fans on social media. That's huge because that's, again, the audience that we're able to reach or that she's able to reach with her message when she needs to get that out. So 13,000 people following her brand on social media. That is building a brand, and that's huge. Brandy's a vacation rental manager, so think about going to a prospective owner and saying, here's my marketing strategy. I'm doing email marketing. I'm doing social media. I've got 10,000 people in my email database. I've got 13,000 people following me on social media. I'm ranked here in SEO. So it's about more than just attracting customers. It's also about attracting an owner. And if you're trying to attract an owner, or if you're owning a hotel, you're trying to attract a bank. We're working with several customers that are trying to acquire inns and hotels right now, and the marketing is a really important piece of that whole puzzle. If you're trying to get acquired or you're trying to acquire a property, the marketing play is going to be a really important part. You got to think about how that ties back in. But being able to say things like, I have 13,000 people following me in social media, or I have 10,000 people on my email database, and translating that back to a place of value and translating that back to a place of bookings is really important as you're acquiring new properties under management or as you're trying to get bought or buy a property. So something really critical to think about in your overall marketing play, and it's about more sometimes than just attracting those guests. Search engine optimization, something we're going to touch on here. We're expecting some big changes coming in this in the next couple months. Haven't quite seen those yet, but stay tuned with us. We will do a webinar as soon as we do. What we have seen is that Google has made more consistent small changes as opposed to major big changes in the last year. You know, you haven't heard breaking news about algorithm updates from Google, and that's on purpose because they don't want that breaking news because that just encourages people to try to game the system. But you've got to make sure that you're ranking for high-value keywords, staying on top of that. All of the changes in the map that have happened in the last 18 months make this a lot more difficult than it used to be. But you've got to look at that and make sure that you're staying on page one for for the most important keywords, the high-value keywords, and make sure that you understand the traffic those keywords have. It's unfortunate, but we see a lot of unscrupulous SEO companies that will sell someone on the idea of ranking for keywords that have no traffic. And it's easy to get ranked for a keyword that has no traffic because nobody's looking for it. So as you're working towards SEO, it's about more than a keyword position. It's really about how much organic search traffic do you have, and is that growing? Is that increasing year over year, and do you have a plan to make sure that it's doing that? And we set the goal of increasing organic search traffic by 20%. So I would encourage you to do that same thing. And as you're reviewing your analytics, did you increase your organic search traffic by 20% last year? I would hazard to say every single one of our customers did, which I only use that to say it is possible. The majority I know have, because I'm in their analytics on a regular basis, but it is absolutely possible. You just have to have a strategy to be able to do that. You have to have a strategy to increase organic search traffic because it is the #1 place people will discover your destination, discover your properties, is organic search. And it's the #1 way you can reach people outside of third-party distributions. So you've got to make sure you have a plan to grow that. And a lot of that stems from creating fresh content regularly. I think we have a webinar slated for March, actually, on kind of some of the how-tos of blogging, and we're going to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit on our strategy from a blogging perspective. Pulling the curtain back is something we do quite a bit, but it still takes a lot to get it done. We have an incredibly talented team of journalists that work for us to help make that a reality, but it takes a lot to get that much content created. But the number one thing you can do to succeed in increasing search engine traffic this year is going to be integrating your blogging and your search engine optimization strategy to drive more traffic. We're going to talk about that more in depth in March in some of our coming webinars, so stay tuned for that. We're going to spend like a whole hour on just that subject alone. So, but that's really what we want you to go after this year, is an opportunity to increase that. And if you do that, you will be less reliant on third-party distribution. Absolutely critical piece of your overall strategy. And as we look at Brandy and follow that case study along and look at her year last year, looking at 2015 over 2014, she increased organic search traffic by 33%. So we talk about the fact that it's possible, but you have to have a strategy to do that. There is a lot of opportunity to increase organic search traffic out there. You just have to be really having a forward-thinking strategy about the new SEO. A lot of people are claiming SEO is dead. It's absolutely not dead. It's just very different than it used to be. Like everything, right? I mean, SEO is changing. Everything's changing. That's what we started our time together with. The only constant is change. So SEO is changing. You've got to make sure you have a strategy, or the people you're working with have a strategy to keep up with those changes and make sure they're increasing search traffic. One of the other things we're going to touch on real quick is that, and one of the other ways to reduce your dependency on third-party distribution is to generate more leads or booking inquiries via your own website. If you can double the conversion ratio your website has, if you can go from 0.5% to 1%, you've essentially doubled your ability to increase revenue, or you've doubled your booking inquiries without even touching increasing traffic. A lot of times it's easier to increase conversion on your website than it is to increase traffic. Everybody talks about traffic, and I know we spend a lot of time here talking about it, but conversion, in our opinion, is probably as important, or maybe a slight second to the overall traffic as a whole. You got to increase traffic, but then you got to really get in that conversion. It gets a little bit more advanced. You have to spend more time testing and doing those things. It's definitely a more advanced strategy, but you've got to have a plan. If you're going to really reduce your dependency, this is a great next step. Maybe you increased traffic 30% last year, and you're like, Matt, I got it, man. I've been listening to your webinars for 2 years. This is a story I just heard, actually. That's why I'm using it. But I've been listening to your webinar for 2 years. I've been implementing your suggestions. My traffic's at 30%. I'm super excited. What's next? This is what's next. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's absolutely powerful for you, and can mean a huge difference for you when it comes to actual revenue to your bottom line, and reducing that dependency. So make sure you're thinking in 2016 about your strategy. You're thinking about how to generate more leads and booking inquiries directly through your own channel. And as a kind of a case study on that, last year Brandy generated 18,000 plus total leads through her website. 6,009 were unique leads, meaning that those were unique potential customers that converted into 1,502 bookings for a total booking revenue of $2.25 million. So you talk about numbers, right? I mean, you talk about revenue, that's some serious money to the bottom line. Larger organization, so I'm not saying you're going to hit those numbers, but you think about your business, think about what that would mean to grow some things like that, grow numbers that are more proportional to your business, excuse me. So we've talked a little bit today about kind of why this is important, right? Why we kind of need to have this conversation, what's happening, what are the changes we're seeing, what's the impact it's going to have on our business. We've laid the groundwork and kind of started walking you through some ideas and some processes and some strategies to implement for your own business. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit fired up. You're a little bit inspired by the topic today. You're ready to take this on. And if that's you and you're asking yourself that question of how do you get started, we want to give you that next step. A great next step for you would be to request a free marketing grader. We have software that will actually grade your marketing. It looks at all those things I've talked about and will generate a grade for you based on how well your marketing is performing. And one of the best things about it, I think probably the best thing about it, more so than the grade even, is that it gives you action items. And it says, okay, here's the action items you need to take to improve your marketing. And no matter where you are, there will always be another action item, right? So if you're going to get an 80, your grade's an 80%, let's say, there will be action items given to you, very specific, to help you get to a 90. If you're a 40, and we see a lot of people that are a 40, don't be ashamed, that's okay. Honestly, the average person we see is probably a 40 to 50. you're going to get action items to help you get to a 70. If you're a 70, you're going to get action items to help you get to an 80. You get what I'm saying. But they're customized to you and your situation and what we see in your marketing. So great opportunity as you're working on setting a strategy for the year, as you're working towards your next steps. This will really lay out those next steps for you well. So I'm going to send you an email as an opportunity to request that. So you'll get an email from me probably in about the next half hour. As soon as I wrap all this up, I'll get that email out and send that over to you for you to request your free marketing grader. And the other beautiful part about that is we'll spend about 15, 30 minutes connecting with you, and one of our team members will answer any questions that you have as well. So great time to get some consultation or get any questions you have answered. So that was a lot of information. I know we've blown through that pretty quick. I promised I'd leave 10 minutes for Q&A, and surprisingly enough, I hit that right on the nose. It is 2:50 Eastern time. So I know our chat panel has been blowing up. Let's dive in there and answer some questions. If you have a question, go ahead and drop that in the chat panel, and we'll get an answer to that question for you as well, and hopefully help you all as you move throughout developing this strategy. All right, so let me scroll up here and see what questions we have here. Awesome. Question from Lisa about Tripadvisor traffic. Now that there's a partnership with Booking.com, do you recommend properties sign up for instant booking with Tripadvisor? Lisa, when we don't like to make blanket recommendations like that across the board because that's really a customized thing on a per property level. I think it absolutely can make sense in certain situations. So I really need to dive deeper into your situation, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that and kind of dive deeper into it. As a big picture, yes, I think using Instant Book or using Trip Connect or using kind of a combination of those tools can be powerful for you, especially if you're listed other places on OTAs. Because if you're listed on OTAs and that is showing up on your Tripadvisor presence, you need to then definitely have a way for them to book direct with you as opposed to booking with a third party. So based on your individual situation, but if you're listed on other OTAs and those are showing up on your Tripadvisor presence, you absolutely have to have a presence there, whether that's Trip Connect and get the direct booking link or whatever you're going to use to get that done, you need to have a presence there. Question here from Mary. After hearing about everything there is to lose, why use a directory at all? Great question, Mary. You know, I think they have a role to play. They have a role to play in your business, especially if you're in an urban market. There's a lot of people that go to those. If you're in a more remote destination, they have a smaller role to play, if a role at all. But you've got to really evaluate that for your individual situation. I don't know what market that you're in, Mary, but you've got to be thinking about that. I mean, there is a lot of business that can come through those channels, so we're not saying eliminate it altogether and ignore it, but it's an opportunity to look at, and we would say it should be the minority of your overall revenue coming through those channels. If it's a majority, it's definitely something you need to be building a plan to reduce. Question here from Jay. Don't have a full name for Jay, but he just tuned in. So your point is email marketing will replace or reduce advertising on third-party sites. That was one of my points, that email marketing can reduce advertising on third-party sites. It's definitely not the point of the whole webinar, but one of the points that we made today. And I encourage you to listen to the recording to kind of get the full breadth of everything. And I know if you came in at that point, you probably picked up some other things as we moved along here. Question here from Duke. What is the best way to get emails for the markings? Not sure. Maybe you mean bookings instead of markings, but what is the best way to get emails for the bookings? If that's the question, I mean, the best way is probably to get that, when somebody books with you, if you're not getting that from whichever third-party distribution channel it is, to get that at check-in. Make sure that either as you're communicating with them or whatever, you get the actual email address from them so you can communicate to them in future, for future campaigns. Question here from Karen. When sending out email marketing, should you always be offering some type of special? No. We believe that email marketing is more about giving people a reason to come back and visit you based on activities rather than because you're advertising some type of special. If all you do with email marketing is communicate sales and discounts, you're training your customer to start expecting that, and you're training them to only book with you when there is some type of special, assuming you mean discount when you say special, not a special event or something like that. Now, discounting can have a role, right? It's a part of yield management and the bigger strategy that is there for revenue management. But we believe, and what we have found works most successfully, is to give people a reason to come other than a discount. What I mean by that is you've got to create great quality content around things to do in your area to get your past guests excited about coming back. For example, there's a great inn just south of Asheville that I love to go to. And I got an email from them about a brew festival that was happening in Asheville. Asheville is one of the hottest microbrewery towns in America right now. That is a reason for me as a beer enthusiast to go back and stay there and take in this beer festival. I got an adventure package from them, right? They have this whole adventure package with, you're getting to know a little bit of my personality, but with whitewater kayaking, rappelling, and a zip line. They put this whole beautiful package together. That's a reason to come visit. You don't have to give me a discount if you give me an exciting reason to come back and visit. They educated me about something I didn't know exists. I forwarded that email on to all my buddies that like the same type of stuff I like, and we travel together and we do all these crazy adventures. And we're planning a trip now to that area to be able to go do that. So those are the types of things we like to send out an email more than just discount. So hopefully that helps. Kind of a long-winded answer there. Question here from Heather. Our local newspaper creates a really thorough visitor guide and makes it available as a download on their own website, and I sometimes download it. Can I offer that as a downloadable item from our own website, or do I need to generate my own visitor guide? Is it dirty pool to use theirs? That's a personal question. I don't know if they have that trademarked or anything like that, or if you ask and get permission to use it. I would definitely ask and get permission, because if it's their intellectual property, you could actually get sued for that. If it's not yours and you don't have the rights to use it. So I would stray away from that. The other thing to think about is it's probably going to have their branding all over it. So they download that. They found you somehow through your marketing, and then they download that visitor guide, and then it's covered in the branding and all the websites of whoever they put in it, which steers them back away from you to possibly go somewhere else. So Heather, my encouragement there would be to create something that builds your brand as opposed to giving away something that builds someone else's brand, especially at the point where you've already worked so hard to get them to your site. Question here from Zach. What is your opinion on offering discounts for booking on our direct site? My opinion is that you shouldn't discount it just so someone books direct. Most of the OTAs make you agree that you won't do that. You can add other value or things like that, or again, this isn't a best practice, but some people only offer their highest price rooms or highest priced accommodations or highest priced properties, or least desirable inventory. For some people, that's actually their lowest priced inventory on those on the booking site for third-party distribution sites. So that's a strategy, but I wouldn't necessarily implement a book direct discount. You can, however, message book direct for the best rate and offer a best rate guarantee. It gives people a sense of peace when they're booking with you that they're getting the best rate, whether they are or aren't. Most people are too lazy to actually go check. They just want to think they are. So you can market that as well. Agoda has just appeared on Tripadvisor for our property. What is your experience with this third party? Honestly, I don't have a lot of experience with that one, or any experience with that one. There are so many third-party distribution sites. And when I say that, I mean there are thousands. It is difficult to keep up with all of them. So I don't have experience with that one. I have to research that and try to dive a little bit deeper into that. So many of them are built as marketing channels, and then they get like a pass-through commission. And Booking.com might put your inventory on 100 sites, and then that commission that they get would end up getting shared through that. So lots of questions here. I'm going to try to keep moving. Is it worth renegotiating commission rates with OTAs? Absolutely, Liz. If you can renegotiate commission rates, more power to you. It's very difficult. They're pretty set in stone, and not usually something they'll negotiate. Question here, how do I find an affordable website? If you're looking to build an affordable website, we can absolutely do that for you. I would just send me an email, and we will be in touch to help you build an affordable website. We've got a great website tool. We haven't completely launched to the marketplace yet, but we're beta testing it right now with about a dozen properties, and it's doing really, really well, and we're excited to bring it to the marketplace. So a little preview there for everybody on the webinar. My power's been going on and off here in Costa Rica. I'd say sorry, but I'm not, because you're in Costa Rica and I'm just jealous, so there's that. Will there be a replay? I've missed 3/4 of the webinar. Absolutely. We will get you a copy of that recording. Watch your email. We will be emailing out to that to everyone who is registered for the webinar today. And then send me an invite too. After you get that email, reply back and go ahead and just be a good steward of the industry and invite me to come visit y'all. You may have heard me talk about it. Costa Rica is like one of my favorite places in the world. This is a little off the direct topic. Question here from Mark. This is a little off the direct topic, and I won't hold you to this, but do you recommend one directory over another? Mark, I love that you said I won't hold you to this, but we are recording this, so no. I mean, it really depends on your business and your situation, and there's so much that goes into that question. I can't make a blanket statement and recommend one over another. You really just got to analyze that, and if you're trying to work through that, please get in touch with us. We'd be happy to try to help answer that question more specifically, or better yet, request the marketing grader, because that would be a great topic to discuss when we're reviewing that marketing grader. And by then, we'd know a little bit more about your business because we would have done the grader and all that. We'd have more insight to be able to answer your question more intelligently. Yeah. Long question here from Jason. We have increased our rates by a small percentage on HomeAway, but posted everywhere in the ad and on our email quotes that the customer will save if they book direct through us. Do you feel that is a good strategy? Another reason we did that was because HomeAway quotes the cheapest rate despite you having a weekend premium, so the quotes we sent were different from HomeAway's. Yeah, I think that's a fine strategy. I don't know that they'll let you get away with that forever. I don't think that that's typically something that they want out there, so I would say at some point you'll probably get shut down for that, but I think it's a great strategy to start with as long as you can keep using that. Hopefully that was helpful there, Jason. We've also purchased followers for our social media. Do you find that helpful? No is the answer. Purchasing followers on social media outlets. That used to be something that a long time ago people would do, and it had a role. I'm not going to dive real deep into it, but it wasn't really valuable. But you could also buy like 10,000 people for $10. And they weren't real people. That was the thing. So it looked good because your number was big, but they weren't real people. So that's why we don't think it's valuable. Question here: since market demand is so very much regional, approximately where are Brandy's vacation rentals? Yeah, I mean the point isn't that you need to hit Brandy's numbers, so don't take that away from it. The point is you need to have a plan. Whatever your numbers are, whatever destination you're in, if you implement the plan we talked about today, the strategy we laid out, you will decrease your dependency on third-party distribution, and you will increase your direct bookings. Forget about where you are or anything else. I guarantee you any destination in the world will increase direct bookings and decrease reliance on third-party distribution if they execute that strategy. So you won't hit maybe the 2.25 million number, but you will grow your business, and that's what matters. Question from Jason: does Q4Launch offer a service where you can get our marketing department started, or do you take over our entire marketing strategies? We work with a lot of marketing departments. So like, for example, Brandy, whose story I told today, she was a marketing director for our customer. We worked hand in hand with her to make all that happen. So that's kind of the answer to your question, Jason. Happy to address that more directly with you off the webinar and help kind of talk through that. Question here from Karina: what other ideas might be useful for email marketing? Come to an email marketing webinar, Karina. There's so many other ideas. Can't answer all that right now, but come to one that we do just on that topic, and we'll talk about for an hour, and we'll give you tons of ideas. Question here from Tony: about 20% of our bookings come from third-party sites. Would you consider that a healthy portion overall? Yeah, I think it is. Again, it depends on your destination, depends on a lot of things that are custom to you. But big picture, without knowing any of that, I'd say yes, that's probably a pretty healthy number. But looking at the overall part of your marketing budget that consists of, and you're spending to get that, those sort of things, to really answer that question. Question from Robert: What is the advisability of a book direct and save routinely having a slightly lower price than the OTA listing? I know that may go afoul for some of the contracts. We've kind of addressed that a little bit. I answered it kind of since you put that in there, I think, with some of the other questions. But I think book direct and save, or book direct for the lowest rate, that absolutely, is advisable, and that's a great strategy. You're supposed to have rate parity, right, across your listing. So your rate is supposed to be the same everywhere. Then you got to figure out how, what are they getting? If they book direct for the lowest price, the price could be the same everywhere else, but they're still getting the lowest price by booking direct. Even though it's the same, it's the lowest. There's not a lower one available somewhere else. If it's $299 everywhere and it's $299 with you, they've booked the lowest price by booking with you. There's just nowhere that it exists for $298. So that's really what I'm talking about. I think you can get into a little bit of trouble if you mark your price down to $297, but everybody else is $299. Reality is they don't have a way to police that automated, so the likelihood you get caught is low, but it's not really, it's not what you've agreed to do when you sign your contract with them. Well, let's just say that. Question from Karina: Should we offer discounts on our website? If someone's on your website, you shouldn't jump to the assumption that they need a discount to book with you. If they're on your website and you have great properties and they're well done and everything else, there's a great chance that they're willing to pay full price. I wouldn't jump straight into thinking you need to offer a discount. Now, making sure that if you're doing a lot of OTA marketing or a lot of third-party distribution, making sure that you have that, strategy as part of it, but I wouldn't jump straight to the discount. As we talked about, we try to stay away from discounting as much as possible. Question here from Charles: We build our own area guide every year, and it's downloaded more than the local Chamber of Commerce's guide. Congratulations, Charles. That's awesome. It just takes some time to get all the data the first year, and then it's easy to update every year after that. I guess it's more of a statement than a question, but yeah, thanks, Charles. Appreciate you sharing that with us. That's great. So, awesome. I think we've got all of our questions. So great. It's, I know there's been a lot of questions here in the chat, but hopefully I got to everybody, didn't miss anybody. But if you have any questions, let me know. My email address is there on the screen, as is my phone number. I think several of you have been calling me because my phone's been blowing up about the last 10 minutes, but we're still teaching the webinar, so we'll get all those calls returned and emails returned as well. And do keep an eye out for that Marketing Grader offer, a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So thanks for your attendance. We'll watch for the recording and make sure that you take advantage of that Marketing Grader offer if that's something that's of interest to you. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.